TV Campfire podcast.
I was like, okay, so you win for the week.
We're here.
I hate to sound like a broken record.
Oh no! We're fans.
It's one of the best things on television.
Oh! Alright, we got to a whole different level.
No, you didn't.
We talk TV.
That was the best scene ever. Like, that blew me away.
It was absolutely amazing. I just couldn't believe it.
Welcome to the show. This is podcast number 622, and I am Libya, your host, TV and film editor, and we have returning guests.
Malik Elamine, artistic director of Griot Theater.
Hi, I'm Allison, and I write reviews for 6 Degrees of Geek.
And this is Tom. I chair visual and media arts at Palm Beach Atlantic University in Florida and host the Screen Time podcast on iTunes and Spotify.
All righty, let's get started. Tom, hit us with the news. What do you got?
News. Amazon has announced that my old ass director Megan Park has set a YA drama series Sterling Point with Josh Schwartz and Stephanie Savage of the OC, executive producing, and also Lucky Chap, which produced my old ass. The Muhammad Ali series The Greatest has cast Omari Hardwick as Cassius Clay Sr. and Dana Gurrier as Odessa Bird Clay. Jalen Best was previously announced as Ali. Lots of news from Apple TV+. For All Mankind spin-off Star City has cast Reese Ifan as chief designer and Anna Maxwell Martin as Lyudmila, the head of KGB surveillance department. Neuromancer series adaptation has cast Mark Strong in the lead role. Kate Mara joins Elizabeth Moss, Kerry Washington in the series Imperfect Women based on Arminta Hall's novel. Annette Bening joins Anya Taylor-Joy in limited series Lucky, adapted from Marissa Stapley's novel. And Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson comedy series has cast Holland Taylor as Ma Mac, McConaughey's mother. CBS is planning to spin off a show about the CIA. So the tentatively named FBI-CA they're going to introduce 3 characters on the Mothership series that would be leads on the spinoff. Disney Plus has announced a Jonas Brothers Christmas comedy movie. HBO has picked. Say what?
I was being sarcastic. That was my sarcastic gag.
Hey, there's a lot of kids out there who probably enjoy that. HBO has picked up White Lotus for season 4 ahead of season 3's premiere. House of Dragon season 3 has cast James Norton from The Nevers as Ormond Hightower. Hulu has renewed English Teacher for season 2, but canceled How to Die Alone. They will premiere a documentary about the film Rust, examining Helena Hutchins' accidental death and the aftermath. Tan France from Queer Eye is going to guest on the upcoming comedy series Deli Boys, and the Buffy reboot from Chloe Zhao and Sarah Michelle Gellar.
That's not a sarcastic yay. That's like a real yay. Go ahead.
That is nearing a pilot order at Hulu. NBC has set a bunch of people to guest on the SNL 50th anniversary special, including Dave Chappelle, Tom Hanks, Kim Kardashian, Sabrina Carpenter, and more. And as Comcast prepares to spin off its cable assets, except for Bravo, CEO Brian Roberts has announced a broadcast plus streaming strategy that will focus on NBC, Bravo, and Peacock. Netflix, to no one's surprise, has canceled Sandman because of Neil Gaiman's legal issues.
We still get season 2.
We are still getting season 2. They have greenlit a reboot of Little House on the Prairie. Jeremy Allen White is attached to a limited series adaptation of Enigma Variations, a bisexual romance drama from the author of the novel Call Me By Your Name, Andre Ackerman. Before Lena Dunham's first scripted comedy series Too Much debuts, they've locked down a first look production deal with her company Good Thing Going for projects. At PBS has announced that Leslie Manville and Tim McMullen will reunite for BBC masterpiece Marble Hall Murders, the 3rd and final installment of Anthony Horowitz's Susan Ryland mystery series. Peacock canceled Hysteria after 1 season. Jennifer Garner will star in 5-star Weekend series adaptation of Elin Hilderbrand's novel, and The Burbs series adaptation starring Keke Palmer has cast Jack Whitehall from The After Party, Paula Pell from Girls 5 Eva, Julia Duffy from Palm Royale, Mark Proksch from What We Do in the Shadows, and Kapil Talwalkar from Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. And that's the news.
All right, let's start off with the shows. First up, we're going to do The Agency, and we're going to do episodes 5 through 8 really fast because this show I was going to say it started well, but it started mediocre and it continued mediocre. So I don't feel like it needs a lot of attention other than to just kind of get through the main story points of what happened and let's just bring out the stuff that we think worked and not really dwell on the things that didn't work. Who wants to go first with those criteria?
Well, I somewhat differ from your intro there, so maybe I'll go
Okay.
first because of that.
All right.
I wanted to like the agency from the very beginning, and I had lots of problems liking it from the very beginning. I happen to think that the most recent three episodes were the best episodes of the series. And in particular, why I found so our prior challenges with this show is you have a CIA agent who acts like he's never understood anything about intelligence, the way he behaves when he
Yeah.
returns home from assignment. And
Yeah.
he's making all of these unforced errors, and no one seems to be observing that he's making these unforced errors. That's a problem for much of the show. What I appreciated about the most recent episodes is we start to see other people who are good at what they do. In particular, I liked the Russian person who is dropping breadcrumbs for them to figure out who he is and how to contact him. And he's using these old
Oh,
school intelligence tools to communicate through back channels. And basically, it's like if you can figure out where I am and how to talk to me, I'll give you the information that you're looking for. That felt fun. It was still high stakes, but it also was a bit like a game. I appreciated that aspect of the show. I also liked, pulling straight from the headlines, having the Russian mercenary boss, and watching his world when they tried to get one of his people to turn against him. I thought the actor who played the mercenary boss was incredible. He was both dangerous and interesting and smart. Uh, and the stakes of how they tried to get his secretary to turn against him, and they didn't care about her safety at all.
here's the thing
Um,
about that particular thing. I have a comment, which
yep.
is why are you switching out someone's boots? Boots are something that you break in and they become part of your feet and you know them. So switching out his worn in boots for some brand new boots, or even if they weren't even brand new, even if they were boots on somebody else's feet, they wouldn't have felt right when he put them on. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Anyway,
Well, I
continue.
actually, my bigger, if we talk about, I was talking about what I liked about it.
Okay.
I actually think the biggest problem with that whole premise was it was never clear what they actually had against the woman to make her turn against him. They pretty much met her at this shop and was like, hey, give us information or we'll tell him we're talking to you. She had never been talking to them. So unless I
Well, I
miss,
think that that was the point. That was that, I mean, he's so paranoid that just them making the suggestion that she was talking to CIA, even though it was a complete setup, would
Right.
have endangered her life. That was the
Right.
point, I think.
I thought that was weak. Because it seems to me, given where she landed,
You
that
were just dead
the
still.
better choice would have been, hey, I was at the shop this morning and this woman approached me. Here's everything I know about it. What do you
Right.
want me to do?
Right.
And I think that would have been the approach
And
that
especially because she was not a good spy. She like every time she did something, she looked terrified, you
yeah,
know.
but so that was good. That was good. I think the actress was convincing.
Yeah.
So all of that is to say, I was actually more intrigued by the most recent episodes because of the different storylines and characters that they brought in, and there was a little less focus on how bad the central character is at being a CIA agent.
I think the thing that I really liked, especially about the last episode or the last two episodes, is his audacity in assuming that Samia, once he told her the truth and said, "Hey, I'm a CIA agent. I've been one this whole time. Hey, don't you want to come work with me and I'll give you my protection?" And she repeatedly told him, like, "Look, dude, even if I did want to come work with you, they will kill my family." And he was like, "Oh, but you'll be safe." And she's like, "But they'll kill my family." And she told him that like 3 or 4 times. And then he was surprised when she didn't back him up. I was like, "Are you not hearing her speak to you?" And I really like that she stuck by her guns and she's thinking that they still might kill her. But her thing is because she did, have an affair with him for years. And so they might have doubts about her and everything like that. And they might kill her, but they won't kill her family. And that to
And
her,
it wasn't just her family. She said, I'm not going to betray my country.
thank you.
She's
Yes.
Yes.
I
still a
like that too.
patriot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I thought that was great too. I thought all of that was great. And the fact that he could not conceive of her not loving him more than her country is just, I was like, dude, come on.
uh, that's what
So
they call
I,
privilege, right?
Yeah, I really liked her perspective. That is what I like the most about the last episode. It's just we got her perspective and her walking to that plane, not knowing if she was going to get off of it. They might kill her. She doesn't know, but she's willing to do that for her country, And I did really like that. Tom, really quick, or Allison, really
I
quick, a
bailed.
couple minutes.
I was
Oh,
too
you
bored.
failed.
I was too bored with the first 4 episodes. My time's more valuable.
I'm not
Yeah,
going to
no,
argue with you.
I've watched it to the bitter end and I feel cheated having done that. Um, because really I think the high point is like the bits that don't involve him.
Yeah.
When you're watching people who are actually competent at what they do, who know what they're doing, and some of them are the enemy.
Well, my thing is,
It's
why did he have that fight with that guy in the parking garage?
it
Like,
was so much it's so nonsensical, and he acts like a drug addict almost. I mean, he's just so completely single-minded on everything he does has to, is to be with her even when she says no.
right.
And it's just it makes him look like a crazy stalker. It makes him look like an idiot. And this
Hmm.
is supposed to be our hero. This is supposed to be the guy that we're rooting for. Now, I
Yeah,
mean, I want my heroes to have certain flaws, but I mean, he's flawed in a way that you can't root for. And
right.
I it was such torture to watch him. And I love Michael Fassbender. I mean, he's doing a great job in terms of acting, but the character is just appallingly bad. And
Well,
I'm
and
much more interested actually in the other characters around him than I am with him and his obsession with Samia.
so my thing is, I really liked, like I said, I liked how they dealt with her, but the issue I had too with this last episode is he gets outmaneuvered. The Chinese guy brings the disc, and he's like, "We have a deal," and he sees that he's lost, and so he picks a fight with this dude in the parking garage. And the only thing that happens because he doesn't question him, because I thought, is he gonna? I was like, he's gonna drag this guy away and get the answers to his questions. No, he just wanted to beat the dude up. What? Why? What are we doing?
Yeah,
Let,
So
let,
accomplishes nothing.
it accomplished zero things
let me
other than for him to
suggest
be
that
petty.
were the premise of this show, we have a guy who's in the CIA and he's really bad at it. Look what happens. Like, that could be an interesting show. Like the greatest American hero, right?
Oh
He's a
wow.
superhero, but he's really bad at being a superhero. That can be an interesting premise, but they don't actually lean into that as acknowledging that he's really bad at what he does.
I think they're
So
trying to say that his love for her has blinded him and made him just dumb. Like I think that's the premise of what they're going for, but it does not make interesting watch.
no.
Especially because once she finds, because he's been lying to her this whole time, and once she finds out who he really is, she's like, you know what, I'm out. So
Text,
it's not
please.
like an epic love story or anything at
No.
all. Like no,
And
it's a
I love
very
his
different thing.
surprise when she says no to him. It's like, but how can you be saying that? It's like, aren't you paying any attention?
All
No.
right, let's wrap this one up and move on. All right. Next up, we're gonna talk your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and it is a show on Disney Plus that is technically, I guess, designed for kids, but I am loving it. It is real. It's like an alternate universe of Spider-Man where instead of Tony Stark being the one who recruits him to be Spider-Man and to bring him in and get his suits together. Instead, it's Osborn. Yeah, Norman
Yeah.
Osborn who recruits him in almost the exact same scene. So I like the symmetry of that, of having
Boy,
almost the same scene.
voiced by Coleman Domingo,
Voiced by Coleman
and
Domingo.
having making the Osborns black explains the funky hairdos that don't really work with Anglo dudes.
But yeah, I thought that it's a good like alternate universe. Then we have Doctor Strange show up and blow up his school in the first 5 minutes. Thought that was kind of great. And just to see, and I like that they kind of give you the origin story, but like they also skip it. So like we see the spider bite him, but then we skip to a month later and he's already got his suit and he's already got, he's already doing Spider-Man stuff. So I thought that was a good choice.
It was interesting choice. It's also interesting that the spider comes from a different dimension in
Yeah.
this
Yes.
origin story.
Right.
So it almost allows them to say, hey, we're not going to give you this piece of the story that you've seen many, many, many times before. So it's like, yeah, the spider from this other dimension bites him, and now he's Spider-Man. And now let's go on and tell the story we want to tell. I also just want to say, just in terms of, you talked about whether it's for kids or not. We know that many, many shows that are theoretically for kids also very much are for adults because they recognize people might be watching it, as a family. I think that this show, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, achieves that in a way that our prior show, Skeleton Crew, that we talked about before, does not. So I had no moments of kind of being bothered by the fact that I'm watching an animated show. If this show feels like it's for me, but I also know my son enjoys it too. So I think that's what a show is supposed to do. I found it really successful.
I think it's interesting that it's kind of MCU adjacent because they reference events and characters from kind of standard MCU, except for Spider-Man's not involved when Stark and Rogers have their teams opposed to each other at the airport, as they were in Captain American Civil War. And they also went with a younger version of Aunt May that I have nicknamed Aunt MILF for the past few years for
Wow.
obvious reasons. Um, I think it's interesting that he gets an internship at Oscorp with three other students, one of which is Amadeus Cho in another continuity of comic books becomes a Hulk. I thought it was interesting that Norman Osborn's got the cameras and Peter's doing an internship, so he catches him in the act of changing, and Peter tries to ignore it or tries to deny it, and Osborn's like, "Dude, this is my private camera. Nobody's pranking me on my private
Oh
camera."
no, it's a prank, right? It's a prank. Yeah.
And so initially
bad.
Peter turns down the offer, and then after the next adventure, he accepts the offer because he knows he could use a man in the chair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. I appreciate that they sampled the 67 cartoon theme song in the new, 2025 theme song. But yeah, it is kind of refreshing. I don't mind the animation style. If I see one more fanboy complaining, this cartoon looks too cartoony. It's like you're a moron.
I actually loved the look that they adopted because they're trying to make it look like a comic book.
Comic book.
They've got
Yeah.
the really dark inking, and all of that. It's very graphical. And at the same time, I mean, the characters move really well. So it's not like limited animation, like you're watching one of those Saturday morning things. They put a lot of thought into this. I think that, the graphics were definitely a choice. And I think stylistically, they're handling it beautifully. That's actually one of the things that I really love about this particular cartoon is the look of the thing and the choices that they made artistically.
And Ryan Meinerding, who does a lot of the concept art for all the MCU live action and animated, he did the concept art for this too. So there are aspects that are look a little bit more like the comics than the movies, but it looks good, and I like the 2.5D style.
Yeah, and I mean they obviously take great pride in it because their closing credits always show like, the sketches of the characters and the developments of them and the different costumes and things like that. And they show you just right out there. It's like, yeah, this is a deliberate choice. So I think they did a great job with it. I
Speaking of
love the thing.
choices, speaking of choices, uh, so this is a cultural difference here. Spidey calls his aunt just by her first name, May. He doesn't put that what they call, he don't put a handle on it. He don't call her auntie or nothing like that. So it's interesting to me that as I watch it and I keep hearing him call her May, I was like, that's your aunt, boy. Don't talk to her like she's your little friend. That's my personal reaction. But it works. It works in the reality of the show that they've created. But I just had to point that out. He doesn't call her aunt.
Well,
He
she's
sometimes
only about like 15 years older than he is.
But
I
that's
mean,
still about respect.
In
She's the
my
one.
culture,
Yeah, she's the
yeah, but
one
I
in charge
assume
of his
that
household.
they've had a different kind of relationship. I mean, God knows every iteration we have seen, Aunt May just keeps getting younger and younger and younger. Eventually, she's going to be just,
Be the
I
a
mean,
same
baby
Hannah
in a
age.
Montana,
crib.
if they reboot one more time.
Like, yeah, I mean, she's just going to be younger than Peter eventually. Um,
All
but
right.
yeah, I think it's I was sort of like, oh my God, does the world need another Spider-Man? Especially since we have those great, animated
Into the
movies that are
Spider-Verse.
coming out.
Yeah.
The Spider-Verse stuff is brilliant. And so I was thinking, oh God, do we really need this? But I'm really enjoying it. I'm
Yeah.
finding it to be an excellent show. It's beautifully produced. And the voice acting is top notch, and the animation I think is great, and the stories so far are very compelling. I think it's really a great iteration of Spider-Man. I do appreciate the whole alternate universe approach to this as well.
All right. Well, let's wrap this one up. I think we're saying thumbs up, and we'll
Definitely.
keep covering this. They keep giving us a lot of episodes, which is throwing me off. We get a lot every week, but I love it. Next up, we're going to talk Prime Target, and we're going to talk the first 3 episodes, I believe, of Prime Target. And I will say the first episode of Prime Target really was interesting. It really was like, oh, this concept of numbers and prime numbers and all that stuff was really intriguing. Um, and the only negative that I would say, which it can kind of be weighty a little bit, is that the lead guy, he's a little bland. Like, I feel like they
could
wanted
you
to.
talk a little bit just about the concept of the show a little more before we go into that? Just like overall.
Sure, sure. Overall, I like the concept of the show in that the prime numbers are like this. There's like this other avenue that people aren't aware of or are meaning, and that the government is keeping an eye on all the top mathematicians to make sure none of them discover this the fundamental nature of prime numbers, because they were like, if they do, then they can crack all the codes of everything of
Right. So
society. So
our central character is this once in a generation math talent. The government, the NSA, is watching his teacher because at the moment, his teacher is one of the most brilliant mathematicians. And it turns out that the one that they needed to have been watching was the student.
right.
Um, and then the secondary major character is actually the person who was assigned by the NSA to watch the teacher. And she's just doing her regular surveillance and figures out, because ultimately the teacher, we think, commits suicide, and she ends up piecing together the idea that perhaps he was murdered based on the research that was happening. So just
Right.
from a premise standpoint, in terms of what the show is, where it's a show looking at math nerds, which is an interesting concept in the first place.
I agree, and
I
I want to see the site, the dig site that's in, I can't remember what country that's in.
Iraq.
Like, yeah,
Iraq.
that seems like that's where the story is. I was like, can we go there? I'm tired of being in the classroom. Let's go there and figure out what's going on. Like, that seems
We'll
like
get there
that's where it's
eventually.
going. I know, but I just want to get there faster.
I just I thought that they got into the story much faster in PrimeTarget than on the age. Is it the agency?
Mhm.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's the first. I mean, we only get David Morrissey in one episode, except for we get flashbacks in further episodes. But once I mean, that plot engine kicked in soon, which I recommend to all showrunners out there. Get the story started. Um, and like Malik said, the math geek stuff, like I actually I double checked them when they said 204 is a very special number, and I'm like, ooh, I never knew that. Um, the I'm really intrigued by the older African Britain professor
Oh,
who's
the
got
one with
Alzheimer's,
Alzheimer's, right?
but you wonder, was he like the first generation of prodigies? And when he has a moment of lucidity to be helpful to our young leading, Leo Woodall's character, it's kind of cool. I like that actor. He's a good character actor. But I think it's a solid thriller. Some of the critics rave, this is the best conspiracy thriller of the year. It's like, well, the year's
Eh.
new, so let's hold our horses.
It's
But no,
January.
it's
It's
engaging.
We're
just
like a
It's
month
engaging.
February.
and a
Yeah.
half into this year. So
It's
yeah.
engaging. I like Woodall. He was the honey trap in season 2 of the
White
thing on the
Lotus.
island. Thank you,
White
of White
Lotus.
Oh,
Lotus.
okay.
But
My
man, his career he is the title character in the new Bridget Jones movie. Bridget
well,
Jones mad about the boy because he's like
I
20
I
plus
want
years
to
younger.
I want to see him in something else. I feel like they were like, okay, you're playing a math nerd, and so he's like, okay, I'm just gonna come bring everything down.
Well, they've
I'm
also
gonna
put
bring.
him. He's also kind of on the spectrum too.
Yeah,
Yes,
I got that.
yes.
I got
I,
that. Yes,
I, I'm really enjoying his performance in this show. I don't know him from other shows,
I
so
don't either. Yeah.
I'm just watching this actor play this role. Um, I to me, he almost feels like Hamlet playing this character.
Okay,
He's
I'm intrigued now. Go
he's
on.
got this melancholy in him,
Mm,
and that is underneath everything else that's happening. He has a hard time caring about anything other than
Yes.
math.
Yes.
right.
And so to me, I find his character incredibly compelling. I love how when he gets assigned to his new teacher, he's basically like, prove to me you're good enough to be my
I saw.
teacher. I
I was like,
love that.
wow,
It's
wow.
like
That's some arrogant, but that's some arrogance though. That's some
it
serious
is, and it's
arrogance.
great. And it's great that the teacher was affronted by it, but
Yeah.
realized he had to pass the test in order to advise him. I love how so he has this homosexual encounter with the bartender, which by the way, I think he should suspect the bartender, but we'll see if anything comes of that. And the bartender was like, "Oh, you haven't told your family you're gay." He's like, "I'm not anything." And based on his characterization, I could understand he doesn't identify as gay. He has a hard time
Connecting.
uh yeah. And
Yeah.
so I find his character compelling. His character is also left-handed, which most
I
gay
s-
people on the planet
I
are.
saw that. Yes, I
Um
noticed that as well.
so
Mr.
so I'm
Left-handed guy. Yes, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, so I actually I'm really excited by his portrayal of the character. And just speaking of actors, the woman who plays Taylor Sanders also, you could see how well, she might have been cast for her looks, but even from the intro of her character, the subtleties of what you learn about her attitudes and her relationships with the people around her, I think are quite complex. So I'm really excited by the performances in the show as well.
I think we had different takes on it. I'll go back and think about it again. And I did pick up on all the stuff you're talking about him being on the spectrum and all that, but it felt a little flat to me. Like I saw that the actor was doing. That's why I want to see him in something else. But anyway, let's move on. Next up, we're gonna talk about Paradise, and this show is starring Sterling K. Brown,
Sterling K. Brown.
who I love off the top. Like I was like, okay, I'm ready to love this show. And it comes off at first because it starts in like it jumps around in time. So
Hmm.
you you're not quite sure what time period you're in from scene to scene sometimes. You got to really pay attention. And then they have the big twist at the end, which somebody was like, it's in the title. And I was like, okay, fair. It is in the title.
Yeah, but
Uh,
still.
but it was a good like flip or change a rule on you where I didn't see it coming. Which is that he's supposed to be the president, part of the president's detail. The president's retired. He's still part of the detail, and you think that he's
He's not
just retired.
retired?
Just yeah, well, he's out of office. Like his term, it seemed like his term was up, and that's why they're just hanging out at this house in the suburbs. They're not at the White House because half of the scene you're at the White House, and then you're in the suburbs, and so you're thinking, oh, he's retired, and blah blah blah,
Yeah, they
and
even
then
have a scene where he actually says, "I'm going to want you around for, when
when
these
you're
4 years are over."
exactly. So they do a lot to mislead you. And then when you get to the end and you realize they're in some really crazy bunker that's big enough to have this entire neighborhood in it, and you're like, wait, what? And
It's
then you're
like
like, wait, I'm watching Silo?
it's like Mount Weather, which is a real thing, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, I
so
I was
go
I
ahead.
was impressed with that the one twist that they did, because I went into it just figuring, oh, this is going to be your typical thriller.
Right.
There's going to be a murder, and they're going to investigate, and they're going to find a conspiracy, and blah blah blah, and very rote. And then they did the twist at the end, and they do drop breadcrumbs. I mean, one of the
Yeah.
first things I was thinking when he was running through the neighborhood is, wow, this looks like Stepford.
Because all the houses were the
This has
same,
got,
everything was the
yeah,
same.
it just had that feeling, and
Cookie
I'm
cutter.
going, yeah, this is just, yeah, this is way too utopian. I was thinking that's just kind of weird, but then I dismissed it because we were on to other things. And when it gets to the end, and the first thing you see, actually even before the ceiling, is the guy with the ducks, programming them and putting them in the water. um
Right.
I was like, oh, okay, very good, okay. Unfortunately, that for me is like the most interesting thing they did. And once they got past that, we were back to the conspiracy thriller thing. And I'm finding the rest of it really kind of overwrought and predictable.
I
It's
mean,
not unentertaining, so I'm still watching it, and God knows the cast is fantastic.
Sarah
But I'm
Sahadi is
not finding
great.
it.
I
It's
love
like they
her.
had that one twist that was great, and then since then it's been kind of like, by the numbers, honestly.
We've only had a couple more episodes, so I'm not upset
Yeah,
about that
but
yet.
I mean,
Yeah, I think they have more coming. I'm being confident in it because I really think the cast is phenomenal.
I'm kind of with Allison. I think this is a case where I generally like a lot of what Dan Fogelman does. I don't think he was the right person to do this show because his real wheelhouse is family type shows, interpersonal relationships, and some of that's in here. But the conspiracy thriller stuff, it kind of reminds me because some of the twists afterwards have been so predictable. There's one and
Well,
three, and then it just feels too rote for me.
I think one of the episodes I would agree, but I don't know. You can have a one-off episode. But Malik, what were your thoughts?
So in general, I think it's a great show. We've already talked about all of the actors are incredible, so that helps.
Yeah.
Kind of whatever you think about the story, it helps when you've got great actors sharing the screen with one another. It helps you kind of get past some of the things that perhaps aren't as exciting. I might echo a little bit of what Tom said, but in a slightly twisty way. Maybe not that Dan Fogelman was the wrong person to write it, but it's almost like they said, "Hey, Dan, can you do some of the This Is Us stuff with this premise?" So the idea that they're going back and forth between time is very much This Is Us, and they're trying to do that here. But one, we all saw This Is Us. Um, and it doesn't quite feel like it works as organically in this show.
I think
Um,
it worked in the pilot, but I think after that it doesn't work as well.
yeah.
and so the other thing I would say is, so I like the premise that they're underground. I don't think they fully earned the twist revelation at the end of the pilot because I don't think they actually gave us enough clues throughout to know that that's what was going on. I wondered early on, gee, the Secret Service agent lives that close to the president. Um, but other than that, all of the things they showed us right before they revealed they were underground, some of those things might have been interesting to reveal earlier in the episode so that it would be possible to have put it together. A lot of what's important is about the relationships, is about the sense of betrayal that Sterling's character has
For the
by the
president.
president who left his wife out there to be exploded or whatever happened outside and didn't allow him to save her when they knew this catastrophic event was coming, which I think is an interesting, we didn't really talk about that, but just the premise that the government knows a world-ending event is coming. And what's interesting is, does the government make the plan or do private billionaires make the plan?
Apparently a
Or
private billionaire.
what that combination is to
Yeah.
pick people to survive that catastrophic event. So, I mean, that premise I think is a really rich premise to work through. I'd say the one other just challenge, the character of Sinatra is an interesting character. I love that they give us a sense of empathy for her with the loss of her child. We don't have direct empathy for her as a character yet. So, yes, losing a child is an emotional thing, but I think what they didn't give us early enough was, are we supposed to care about her directly? And so I'm waiting for the next episodes to see where we go, one in terms of our relationship to that character, and also who's the bad guy? Like, is she the bad guy or is she a red herring?
Well, I think one of the problems that I have with this show actually is with her character. Because on the one hand, she's depicted as being sort of a female
Sympathetic.
Elon Musk,
Oh, that's not what I meant.
multi-billionaire who's, just, cut off from everybody else, has the resources to build this enormous facility for people to be in, and at least seems to be like the evil head of a conspiracy. And on the other hand, she's a working mom who goes to the supermarket with her kids and
That
gets
is
them
no,
ice
but they showed that
cream.
scene. That scene was before she became a billionaire.
No, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. There
Oh
were
no,
things
you're
that were
right.
happening
Oh, that's
while
right.
she
That's
was
right.
that
That's
rich.
right.
And I'm thinking, what billionaire do you see shopping at the local market?
That's true.
And they just they put her into positions that she simply wouldn't be in with
Right.
as a person with those kinds of resources. She'd have staff to do that.
Absolutely.
She part of the problem with people who have that kind of money is how removed they are from normal living and the average people. They are just completely cut off in their own little fantasy world. So we're not getting that with her. It's like they conceived her as one character and then said, but you know what? It would be really neat if we did this with her. And they never married those two aspects. They just threw them together in a blender.
Yeah.
So I think that, and it's a shame because the actress who plays her is
Julianne
fantastic.
Nicholson.
She's wonderful. She's wonderful, but the material she's being given is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that she really works so far as a character.
Well, let's move on. I'm still enjoying Paradise, and I think it's going somewhere cool, and I want to see where that
Please.
is. Yeah.
Hope so.
All right. Next up, we're going to talk Severance, and we're going to talk episodes 3 and 4. And what the heck happened in episode 3? I know 4.
That was where he at the end of which he goes through the
He gets
reintegration.
Reintegration procedure.
Yeah. So that was the end of 3, but before that, he gets this bright idea to burn words into his irises, which
Or retina.
retina. Thank you. To burn them in his retina, which this doctor points out you could basically blind yourself. What are you doing, you
It's
idiot?
not going to help.
Yeah, it's like, and she was like, and how is he supposed to get a message back? And he was like, well, that's his problem. And I was like, really, dude? Like, come on. So episode 3 almost felt like it was going to be kind of filler because stuff was happening, but it wasn't.
The goat room.
Oh my God. Okay, we got Gwendolyn Christie being awesome, showing up with some shears, talking about, "Have you come here to kill me?" And she's like ready to do battle. And then my favorite thing is they were like, "Do they have pouches? We want to see your stomachs to see if you have pouches." And I was like, "What?" And it's just the whole idea of the fact that all the different departments have these crazy just things about each other, you know? Just lies that Lumen has spread so that they don't talk to each other and they don't cooperate. So that, yeah, that's insane. But yes, the goat department of husbandry, or
Is
whatever
this
she
the
called it.
episode where Milchick gets
Oh, the
the
painting.
is gifted the paintings
You're right. To
Oh,
make
of
it
God.
feel
Lumen
like
history?
yeah, to make him feel like he's included. And I was like, I get what you're trying to say, but I also feel like you are pandering to the point that it's just not genuine.
Because Kier, what's the
Egan.
last name?
Egan.
Kier Egan. Basically, all the Lumen patriarchs are given African American flesh tone
Oh, in his
to make
paintings, yes. To make
Yeah.
in these
in these
in this
paintings.
gift
So
that,
weird.
and it's just like, ooh,
I
it would be
know.
like giving a black kid a history book with the founding fathers as all African American instead of Anglo.
Well, I
That
Yeah.
would
like
be like,
Milchick's reaction, which is
oh, I
basically
do
to take
too.
it and put it up as far away from anything as he
That was
possibly can.
that was the first indication that Milchick is not completely drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because almost in every other way, it seems like he's completely on Team Lumen.
So to me, episode 3, the highlight and revelation is the Natalie character. Um,
Yeah.
because so when we see her earlier, she helps us understand how the board works and how absurd it is about how someone has to speak to the board of directors. It happens again here, but to what Tom and Allison were talking about, when she's the one who presents him with these paintings, and she talks about how she received them too, and the look on her face, I felt like she was that actress from Get Out.
Yeah.
The one who's like, no, 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 no. Like her smile is so forced that you see something else underneath it, like she's a prisoner inside of her own body.
Right.
Um, I thought that both the character and the actress in that episode, one, because of that scene where she presents the paintings, but also when she visits Mark at home and the way she's communicating with him and almost forcing him, but not saying anything. The subtleties of that, I just really thought she shone in that episode. So it was worth it just watching her performances and her scenes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she plays it like a hostage. It's
Yes.
like if she doesn't keep smiling, then they're going to detonate the bomb inside her head, or
Exactly.
like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, we got to talk about the end of the episode, which is Mark finally getting reintegrated, but we don't know what that means. Like I was not expecting reintegration to happen this soon.
So soon.
I mean, I figured it was going to happen, but this was way earlier than I thought, and so I was really pleasantly surprised that they did that. And I liked that when she was turning the levers, he started forgetting stuff um and she was like, "What is the color of your mother's eyes?" He goes, she was like, "Seriously, dude?" And he was that was good. And then you see it all click, 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 and then it goes to black, and you're like, "Oh my God." And then they start episode 4 completely different with the
Mm-hmm.
innies. Like I was just sitting there watching this episode, just going, what's going on? What's happening? I don't understand. What's like that's the first 10 minutes of the episode was just me kind of repeating this because at first I was like, wait, is this the Audis on a trip? Wait, this the innies? How are they there? What's going on? Why are they there? And then I was like, wait, did they play these episodes out of order? Like I was having every kind of thought that was just insane watching this episode.
Okay. Is anybody else besides me suspicious that ORTBO, the acronym for Outdoor Retreat Team Building Occurrence,
Says robot.
is an anagram for robot?
Yes, I saw that.
That was
I
just
think the whole thing
what?
is you can't trust anything Lumen says, especially when Milchek was like, "This is the tallest waterfall in the world," and I was like, "That's probably not the tallest waterfall in that park." And he said it with such sincerity, like he is so full of it. Milchek lies, like every word out of his
He
mouth is a
follows
lie.
his script perfectly.
I feel like he was making up some of that script. And then why plant a dead bloated seal on their path? Like what was that about? Like everything about this episode was crazy. They send them on a literal quest. I felt like they were playing a video game. They were like, you need to follow the path. And they have
Complete
leads.
with CGI avatars of
Yeah,
themselves.
it was just like
I didn't know what those were. They apparently, from what I understand,
they
the
were
way
their
they shot it,
stand-ins. They were their
they got,
stand-ins.
yeah, it's not
Oh, they were
even
the
them.
stand-ins?
Yeah, it's not even them standing there in another shot. They got
Other
lookalikes.
actors.
Yeah, they got other
Yes.
actors that look like
To
them.
do that. And of course they're all standing there looking like zombies with their heads like this as they're pointing. And I mean, it was just so weird. As in a show that just does weird constantly, this stood out as being extra special weird. I
Yes.
mean, all just everything that they did, and they're so great at coming up with these tableaus that just make you go, what is going on? Like in the middle of this wilderness, seeing a television just sitting there
on
Yeah.
an
on a
AV
cliff.
cart from the 70s,
Yes.
from a 70s
Yes.
elementary school.
Right.
Yes,
It was
you know.
all insane. Everything about it was insane. But
Amazing.
I really like there's this point where they're like sitting and they're in the tents and they're telling the stories and he's telling this incredibly just bizarre story about the brother Dieter and how he died. And you're just like, wait, what?
For self-pleasuring?
Yeah, so he basically and then his hair turned to sap and it came off and his eyeball popped. I was like, what are you guys even talking about? And what was so crazy was Dylan was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I was like, shut up. Like, no, it doesn't. And then the part where Helly starts like laughing and stuff and mocking them, that was where I doubted myself. I was like, wait, is that Helly? Like, because that felt like something Helly would do. Like just mock him and make fun of him. It felt very Helly. But then when she said what she said to Irving, I was like, dude, that was mean. Like, why would you say that?
That was
But
definitely
really
Helena.
for me, it was the scene where he was basically calling her on her lie, and he was like, you can tell me the truth, you can tell me. And her expression just changes. Like she's like, oh no, I'm totally innocent, blah blah blah. And then she has this like something just comes over her face and she just kind of tilts her head and looks at him and walks out. And I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Oh, that
Helena.
flash in
Yeah.
her eyes,
Yeah.
because her eyes suddenly just go dead.
Yep.
And I mean, I that was remarkable. That was
Yeah.
absolutely an exquisite moment of acting. Because in just that expression in her eyes for a second, you realized exactly who she was.
Yep.
And you could see the hate pouring out of her. And I thought that was brilliant. And then she brings herself back again, you know. It's like it was so perfectly done.
So that actress, I've liked
Brent
her.
Lower.
Yes. Otherwise known as Below, right? So I've liked her in this show all along. I'd say the moment you all just described, as well as in the prior episode, when she and Mark were on the floor, on the severed floor, and they had a whole conversation without saying words with one another in the hallway, was made me more of a fan of hers. Because exactly what you talked about, how you see the shifts, how you see the changes, how you even see language when she's not saying anything. So I'd say those two episodes together made me much more of a fan of hers. Beyond the fact that I liked her already, I just thought that they were really high caliber work. Speaking of high caliber work, the imagination and I'd almost say the fearlessness that you have to be willing to exhibit to put together the last episode is impressive. Like, who does that? Who
Change
says,
the
okay,
entire premise of their
we're
show.
yeah, it's like now we're gonna have him out in the wilderness in the snow, right? And then this guy's gonna spill his seed in the soil. Like, how do you even come up with that stuff? It's this show is just, it's brave, it's imaginative. I love the visual style of it. I keep falling in love with how it's shot. Um, and how the images are not centered, how they
Yeah.
use one side of the screen is heavier than the other side of the screen. I just continue to be impressed.
We're running out of time, so I
Should we
want to talk
skip
about
past
the end.
Helly and Mark S knocking boots and
Well,
get
that's
to
what we're going towards the end. So them having, if especially after that scene, we now as an audience are pretty sure that this is Helena. And so then they have the sex scene, which I was totally disturbed by instead of it because they shot it like it was supposed to be romantic, and I was like, I was watching it like that with like one eye open. And I really love that Irving, when he's going on his dream walk or whatever, and he sees the screen, in that screen, if you're paying attention, it ends up forming the face, Helly's face, and it
Yep.
says Egan.
Yep.
And that's how when he wakes up, he's like, oh, like it was like a revelation. And then when he comes
Oh
back,
yeah.
they have this big confrontation. And that was just brilliant. Like I thought by the energy, I was like, somebody's about to die. Like I didn't know who was gonna
I was
die.
surprised he survived this episode.
Well, did he though? Because that's the
Well,
thing.
Well,
any version did not. Audi
That's
did.
my point. My point
Yes.
is Irving B did not survive. And so when I was watching that scene and the buildup of the tension, I was like, somebody's about to kill somebody. And I thought she was just gonna kill him. And instead he like tries to drown her, and gets revealed to the innies that, she was spying on them. She was the mole. And if I was Mark, I would feel like a serious level of betrayal and shame because he couldn't tell the difference.
But here's
Well,
the
to be
thing, though.
fair, he was behaving like a moron right before that. So to be fair,
Is that fair?
Here's the thing, though. When they execute Gilead Protocol or whatever it was, it starts with a G.
Glacier something. Yeah, go ahead.
When they execute that, and Helly is, Helena tells them bring Helly back.
Right.
Helly has no knowledge of what Helena just did.
Exactly. So it's all
So
on Mark.
next issue is going to be crazy because everybody's going to be like, "You were spying on us." It's like, huh? Because she's not going to know.
They know that Helly didn't spy on them. They know that.
Right.
They know the difference.
Yeah, no, probably the last thing that she remembers is waking up in the middle of the Egan Gala.
Right.
And so, this is going to be very awkward when she actually has a conversation with him. By the way, did it occur to anyone? It's like, as I was watching it, it suddenly occurred to me, normally the innie's entire existence is working in an office.
Right.
And Irving's dream that we see may be the first experience his innie has ever had sleeping and dreaming.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And I mean, this may be an entirely new experience for all of them.
I also thought
seeing the sky was a new experience for all of them.
Yeah,
all of them, right? Yeah. I just want to just talk about, for me, the thing that hit me the hardest was when Milchek is yelling at Irving and saying, "We will erase you. We will make sure as if you never existed." And then he walks away and he's got this smile on his face, and he basically, they snap him to Audi version, and I was like, he basically is dying. I mean, he's dying. And I was really sad. I was just like, oh my God. Like it really got me. It really got me.
There is no more Irving.
I know. Irving B. There's
Irving B, rather.
Yes.
Yes, there's still his Audi version. And I mean,
I wonder if his Audi version is going to become an activist, though.
I think his Audi version already was.
Already. Yeah, he was involved in something, clearly. Right. And I think that is eventually going to lead to, I mean, I don't think that's going to be a permanent death for any Irving. I think
I
he's going
hope
to
not.
find a way of coming back, even if it's just through integration again.
Oh, if he gets reintegrated, yeah.
Yeah, if he gets reintegrated, I think that we're going to see him
Because
definitely.
he's definitely the MVP of this episode.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like
I mean, the
definitely.
thing is, he was already
and Britt
so.
Lower.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my God, yes. But I think the thing with Irving is that, remember, he was on the verge of just leaving
Right.
before,
Anyway.
Yeah,
and,
he
Yeah.
and
wasn't going to come
accepting
back.
oblivion, because he's he was so miserable to be without his true love. And I think he was ready to die
Yeah.
for a cause, because he doesn't really feel like he has anything to live for.
Yeah.
So.
I see that too, but I was still very sad. That's all.
Oh yeah, so
And
was I.
I want and I can back up Malik a little bit in that I think Mark S, because I'm waiting for that reintegration to really work, because it looks like it was starting to work.
We saw the
Well,
flashes.
Yeah, the
You saw the
flashes,
flash.
but man, he was dumb this whole episode. Like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
Horny.
Well, yes. Also, point out this was probably the first time he's ever had sex. So they said that, I think I saw an interview, and they said that first season was them as being like children, infants, and this season is
This
them
is adolescence.
being adolescents. And I was like, okay, I guess I get it. But anyway. But let's wrap this up. We're all saying thumbs up.
Oh yeah.
So that's all we have for this week. So like and subscribe and follow us, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.